The wine nights started as survival. That's what I tell myself now, sitting in this cramped apartment with a crying baby that isn't his, and a 3-year-old asking where Daddy went. But if I'm honest, really honest, they started because I was bored out of my mind watching Garrett shrink from the man I married into something I couldn't recognize anymore. I'm Brittany, 26 years old, and 6 months ago I destroyed my family. Not with one big dramatic moment, but with 1,000 small choices that seemed reasonable at the time. Each Zelle notification, each wine night that ran too late, each lie I told while Garrett was scrubbing hospital floors at 3 in the morning. But let me back up, because you need to understand who we were before to understand how we fell apart. Garrett and I met at Ohio State when I was 19 and he was 22. He was the responsible one even then, working 2 jobs while finishing his business degree. I was majoring in communications, which really meant I was majoring in parties and finding a husband. He proposed at my graduation, down on one knee in front of the horseshoe while my parents cried and his family clapped. We had the wedding 14 months later, small but perfect, at a vineyard in Granville. I wore my mother's dress altered to fit, and Garrett cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. "You're my whole world, Britt," he said in his vows. "I promise to take care of you and whatever family we build, no matter what." He meant it. That was the thing about Garrett. He always meant every promise he made. It started when the world shut down. Garrett lost his office manager job when the company folded, and suddenly my confident husband was scrambling for anything that would pay the bills. When he came home that April evening and told me he'd taken a janitor position at Mercy Hospital in Columbus, I felt something inside me shift. The shift was physical, like tectonic plates grinding against each other. I was standing at the kitchen sink washing Skylar's plastic princess plates when he told me. My hands stopped moving in the soapy water. He just repeated himself, his voice sounding thinner this time. "It's just temporary, Britt. Until things open back up." I turned to face him, studying this man I'd been married to for 4 years. He was still handsome. Dark hair that curled when it got too long, broad shoulders from his college football days, those green eyes that Skylar inherited. But something in his posture had changed. He looked defeated. "A janitor," I repeated, the word tasting foreign in my mouth. "My husband is going to be a janitor." "It's honest work, Britt. And it pays $15 an hour plus hazard pay, with overtime. Overtime cleaning up blood and vomit and God knows what else." I turned back to the dishes, scrubbing harder than necessary. "What will people think?" "What people?" His voice had an edge now. "Everyone's losing their jobs. There's nothing else out there." But that wasn't true. Other people were finding ways. My friend Madison's husband started a delivery service. Kendra's man got into day trading. They adapted, evolved, found ways to maintain their dignity. Garrett just gave up. "It's just temporary," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Until things open back up." But I knew better. I could see it in the way his shoulders slumped, the way he folded his new uniform like it was made of shame. My husband, who used to wear suits and run meetings, was going to be mopping up other people's messes. "You can't be serious," I said. "A janitor? What about unemployment? What about waiting for something better?" "Unemployment won't cover the mortgage, Britt. This will." That's when I said it. The words that started everything. "You can't come home after being in that hospital all day. Think about Skylar. Think about me. That place is ground zero." He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your dad has that room above the garage, just until we know it's safe." I watched him pack a bag that night, telling myself I was protecting our daughter, protecting myself. But really, I think I just didn't want to look at him anymore, didn't want to see what he'd become. The first few weeks were actually okay. Garrett would FaceTime every evening, reading stories to Skylar, asking about my day. He'd leave groceries on the porch, wave from his car, still trying to take care of us even from exile. But then I met Dominic. It happened at Target of all places. I was buying wine, my third trip that week, when this tall, well-dressed black man helped me reach a bottle on the top shelf. He wasn't wearing a mask properly, had it pulled down under his chin, and somehow that made him seem dangerous, exciting. "Having a party?" he asked, eyeing my cart full of bottles. "Virtual wine nights," I laughed. "It's basically all I do now." "Lucky you." I'm still going into the office every day. Financial consulting doesn't stop for pandemics. Financial consulting, an office, a real job. It was everything Garrett didn't have anymore. We exchanged numbers right there between the wine and spirits. He texted before I even got home. "Nice meeting you, Brittany." If you ever want real company instead of virtual, I'm in the same bubble. Same bubble. Like we were following guidelines. Like what we were about to do was somehow acceptable because we'd found a loophole in social distancing. I should have deleted his number. Should have told Garrett about the encounter. Should have done a lot of things. Instead, I saved his contact as Denise from yoga and texted back. The first time Dominic came over, I spent 2 hours getting ready. Shaved everything, did my hair, put on the lingerie I'd bought for my anniversary that never got worn because Garrett was always too tired. I told myself I just wanted to feel pretty for once, desired by someone who didn't smell like industrial bleach. He brought a bottle of wine that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. "Chateau something or other," he said, setting it on my kitchen counter like it was nothing. "Figured if we're breaking quarantine, might as well do it right." We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, pretending this was normal. Just 2 adults having wine at 2 in the afternoon while the world fell apart outside. He told me about his job, how he was actually making more money now with everyone panicking about their finances, how his wife was at their lake house, had been since March. "Must be nice," I said, already on my 3rd glass. "Having a lake house to escape to." "Must be nice having someone who gives a damn," he countered. "She hasn't asked how I'm doing once. Just keeps posting yoga videos from the deck." That's how we justified it. 2 neglected people finding comfort, like we were characters in some pandemic romance novel instead of adults about to commit adultery. I told myself it was harmless, just someone to talk to who wasn't a 3-year-old or pixelated on a screen. Garrett was calling less anyway, exhausted from double shifts. And when he did call, all he talked about was how tired he was, how hard the work was, how worried he was about money. "Can you pick up another job?" I asked during one of our increasingly rare conversations. "This isn't enough. Britt, I'm working 60 hours a week. When would I dash? Other people are making it work, maybe delivery driving, something." He went quiet. "I'm doing the best I can." "Well, your best isn't good enough anymore." I hung up and opened another bottle of wine, texted Dominic. He came over an hour later. I should have felt guilty when he walked through my door, but I didn't. He brought expensive wine, real food from a restaurant I couldn't afford anymore, and most importantly, he looked at me like I was worth something, not like I was another bill to pay or mouth to feed. "Your husband's an idiot," he said that first night, running his fingers through my hair. "Leaving you alone like this." "He didn't have a choice," I said. But even I didn't believe it anymore. The affair was easy to hide, too easy. Garrett was either at work or at his dad's, only seeing Skylar through a phone screen. I'd reduced his calls to quick hellos before handing the phone to our daughter. I couldn't stand hearing his voice, thick with exhaustion and failure. The first time Garrett tried to surprise us with a visit, I panicked. It was a Saturday afternoon in July, and Dominic was sprawled on our couch watching Netflix like he owned the place. The doorbell rang. Garrett's special pattern, 3 quick rings, and my blood turned to ice. "Get in the bedroom," I hissed at Dominic, shoving his shoes under the couch. "Now." Through the peephole, I could see Garrett standing there with grocery bags and a teddy bear for Skylar. He looked hopeful, like maybe today would be different. Maybe today his wife would let him in. "Britt?" he called through the door. I know you're home. Your car's here. We're napping, I lied. Skylar's sick. I could just drop these. No. I mean, just leave them on the porch. We'll get them later. I watched through the window as he set everything down carefully, making sure the ice cream was in the shade. He stood there for a moment, looking at our front door like it was a wall between him and his life. Which I guess it was. Tell Skylar I love her, he said finally. Sure, I called back, already texting Dominic that the coast was clear. When I opened the door 20 minutes later to get the groceries, I found a note on top. Britt, I miss you both so much. Please let me come home. I'll sleep on the floor if you want. I just want to be near my family. Love, G. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash with the melted ice cream he'd bought. My favorite flavor, mint chocolate chip. The same kind he'd surprised me with on our first date. The money started a month in. Dominic would leave cash on the nightstand, transfer funds to help with groceries, buy me things Garrett couldn't afford anymore. New clothes, toys for Skylar, wine that didn't come from the bottom shelf. I told myself I was surviving, doing what I had to do for my daughter. Let me help, Dominic would say, peeling off hundreds like they were nothing. You shouldn't have to live like this. Like this. Like the wife of a janitor. Like someone whose husband had given up on being a man. By fall, I'd redecorated the bedroom, bought a new wardrobe, had my hair done professionally for the first time in years. When Garrett finally came home in October, the hospital had better protocols, he said. It was safer now. I couldn't even let him in our bed. Guest room, I said, not looking at him. Just to be safe. You're still at that hospital every day. He stood in the doorway of what used to be our bedroom, taking in the changes. The new bedding, the artwork on the walls, the clothes in the closet he knew we couldn't afford. Where did this come from, Britt? Stimulus money, I lied. Unemployment finally came through. He knew I was lying. I could see it in his eyes. But he was too tired, too beaten down to fight. He just nodded and carried his bag to the guest room. My husband, relegated to visitor status in his own home. That first night he was back, I heard him crying through the wall. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears from a man who'd lost everything and didn't understand why. Skylar had fallen asleep in his room, curled up against him like a puppy, and I had to carry her back to her bed. His hand caught mine as I lifted her. Please, Britt, tell me what I did wrong. Tell me how to fix this. You can't fix it, I said, not meeting his eyes. Some things just break. He'd lost weight. His wedding ring slid loose on his finger, and there were new lines around his eyes. But what killed me, what I shoved down deep where I wouldn't have to feel it, was the hope that still flickered when he looked at me. Like maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe tomorrow his wife would remember she loved him. The routine we fell into was pathetic. He'd go to work, come home, stay in his room. Skylar would visit him like he was a sick relative, bringing toys and pictures she'd drawn. I'd leave his meals outside the door like he was infectious, which, in a way, he was. His failure, his weakness, his acceptance of this life, it was all contagious, and I wanted no part of it. The pregnancy test turned positive in January. I sat on the bathroom floor staring at those 2 lines, knowing immediately whose it was. Garrett and I hadn't touched since before the pandemic. He'd tried once, coming to the bedroom door late one night. Britt, can we talk? Can we try to... Go back to your room, Garrett. I'm tired. He always listened, always obeyed. That was the problem. When I told Dominic about the baby, he didn't run like I expected. He got excited, started making plans. He wanted to be involved, wanted to claim his child, the son his wife couldn't give him. This changes everything, he said. I'll leave her. We can be together. But I didn't want that. I wanted the money, the attention, the escape from my disappointing life. I didn't want another relationship, another man to eventually disappoint me. The truth came out in pieces. Garrett found the Zelle transfers first, then the receipts, then finally the pregnancy test in the trash. He confronted me with tears in his eyes, still wearing his janitor uniform, still smelling like industrial cleaner and other people's sickness. "How could you?" I laughed, actually laughed. "How could I?" "You abandoned us, Garrett. You left me here alone while you played hero at that hospital. You stopped being a man the day you put on that uniform. I was trying to provide for our family. By being a janitor? By living at your daddy's house? By making me live like some poverty-stricken single mother?" He flinched at every word. Good. I wanted him to hurt like I'd hurt watching him give up on life. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. So did I. The counseling was a joke. I spent the sessions talking about my panic attacks, my fear of being alone, how scared I was when he left. I painted myself as the victim, and he let me. Even when I admitted the affair, I made it his fault. "He could have cheated too," I said. "He chose to abandon his family." Dr. Patricia Helm was our therapist, this soft-spoken woman who nodded too much and wrote everything down in a yellow legal pad. She'd look at me over her reading glasses while I spun my web of half-truths and manipulations. "I was terrified," I told her during our third session, letting tears fall strategically. Every night alone with a toddler, not knowing if my husband would bring home the virus, if we'd all get sick and die. And then these men started reaching out, offering help, and I was just so vulnerable. Men, plural, making it sound like predators circling instead of me actively pursuing Dominic. Garrett's jaw clenched, but he didn't correct me. He never did. "How did that make you feel, Garrett?" Dr. Helm asked. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Like I failed her. I couldn't provide enough, couldn't be there, couldn't keep her safe. Maybe if I'd tried harder to find a different job." "You see?" I jumped in. "He admits he gave up. He took the first thing available instead of fighting for better. What was I supposed to do?" Dr. Helm wrote something down. "Brittany, can you help me understand what better would have looked like during a global pandemic?" I hated her in that moment, hated the gentle way she was calling out my bullshit. But I recovered quickly. Something with dignity. Something that didn't make me ashamed to tell people what my husband did for a living. "I see. And Garrett, how do you feel about your work?" He straightened a little. "I'm not ashamed. It's honest work. Essential. I help keep sick people safe." "Cleaning toilets," I muttered. "Someone has to," he shot back, showing more spine than he had in months. "Unless you think the ICU should just shut down because the work's beneath us." But the moment passed, and he deflated again. That was Garrett's pattern. Tiny flares of the man he used to be, quickly extinguished by the weight of what I'd done to him. When I finally told him about the pregnancy, sitting in that beige therapy office, he didn't explode like I expected. He just crumbled. Like everything inside him finally gave way. "Is it?" He couldn't even finish the question. "It's Dominic's, and he wants to be involved. The thing about Garrett is he's predictable. Even broken, even betrayed, he wanted to make it work. For Skylar, he said. To keep the family together. He actually offered to raise another man's baby, to pretend everything was fine while my stomach grew with proof of what I'd done." "You're pathetic," I told him that night. "What kind of man would even consider that?" But I needed him to consider it. Dominic's money was good, but it came with strings. He wanted to be at appointments, in the delivery room, part of decisions. Garrett was easier to control. He'd do whatever I told him, just like always. The families got involved, of course. His parents begging him to leave me, my parents ashamed of what I'd become. But I played my cards perfectly. "If you leave, you'll break Skylar's heart," I told him. "She needs stability. She needs her daddy." Using our daughter as a weapon was easy, too easy. He'd do anything for her, including staying with a wife who despised him. The racism card was Dominic's idea. "If he's not accepting of our child, paint him as a bigot," he said. "Nobody wants to be seen as racist in 2021. So I did. Every time Garrett showed reluctance about the baby, I'd twist it. He didn't want to be in the delivery room? He was racist. He didn't want Dominic at the house? He was racist. It was manipulation at its finest, and it worked. But here's the thing about getting everything you think you want. Sometimes it's exactly what you deserve. Garrett left on a Tuesday. No big fight, no dramatic scene. He just came home from another 16-hour shift, looked at me sitting on the couch with my phone, texting Dominic about baby names, and something in him finally snapped back into place. "I'm done," he said simply. "You can't leave." Think about Skylar. I am thinking about Skylar. I'm thinking about what I'm teaching her by staying. He packed methodically, the same way he did everything, folded his janitor uniforms carefully, gathered his few belongings from the guest room. I watched, waiting for him to break, to beg, to fight for us. "The divorce papers will come from my lawyer," he said at the door. "I'll want joint custody of Skylar." "You can have the house. I know Dominic will help you with the mortgage." The way he said Dominic's name, calm, matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather, made my blood run cold. How long had he known? How long had he been planning this exit while I thought I had him under control? "How did you—" "I'm not stupid, Brittany. Just tired." He adjusted his duffel bag on his shoulder. "His cologne is all over my house." My daughter talks about Mommy's friend who brings her presents. The neighbors mentioned seeing his Lexus in our driveway at all hours. My face burned. The neighbors. Of course. Garrett had probably known for months, had been building his case while I thought I was so clever. "I gave you every chance," he continued. "I humiliated myself in therapy, let you paint me as the villain, stayed in that guest room like a dog you couldn't quite bring yourself to put down. I kept thinking if I just loved you harder, if I just proved myself somehow, you'd remember what we had." "Garrett, but you can't remember what you never valued in the first place." He looked around the foyer one last time, at the house we'd bought together, the walls we'd painted, the life we'd built. "I hope he's worth it, Britt. I hope that baby gets a better mother than my daughter did." The cruelty of it, the first cruel thing he'd said in months, took my breath away. But before I could respond, he was gone. "You can't just leave. After everything." Everything. He turned back, and for the first time in months, I saw the man I'd married. "You mean after you exiled me for trying to provide? After you slept with another man in our bed? After you got pregnant and tried to make me raise the baby? That everything?" I had no answer. For once, I had no manipulation, no guilt trip, no card to play. 6 months later, I got the invitation to his wedding. He'd met someone at the hospital, a nurse named Christina who'd seen him at his lowest, and somehow still saw something worth loving. The pictures on Instagram showed him happy, really happy, in a way I'd never made him. They bought a small house in Cincinnati, nothing fancy, but he'd built a workshop in the garage, started a cleaning business that grew into a commercial operation. Turns out all those months of experience meant something. He had contracts with medical facilities across the state, employed 15 people, drove a truck with his company logo on the side. Skylar comes back from her weekends with him full of stories. "Daddy's teaching me to build things." Christina made cookies. "We went to the zoo." She's happier there than she ever is here, in this house Dominic pays for but rarely visits. Because Dominic? He never left his wife. The baby, a boy we named Jaden, sees him twice a week if I'm lucky. He still sends money, still shows up occasionally, but the excitement wore off when the reality hit. A crying baby, a bitter baby mama, the drama of custody arrangements. None of that was as fun as secret wine nights and afternoon hookups. "I thought you were different," he told me the last time he visited. "But you're just like every other woman looking for a meal ticket." He wasn't wrong. I work retail now, folding clothes at Marshall's while juggling 2 kids and a mortgage I can barely afford, even with Dominic's help. My parents watch the kids, but they look at me with such disappointment I can barely stand it. My mom holds Jaden but won't meet my eyes. That poor man, she said once, and I knew she meant Garrett. Working himself to death for his family, and you? She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The other single moms at daycare whisper about me. The one who cheated on her essential worker husband. The one who got pregnant by her side piece. The one whose ex-husband went from janitor to business owner, while she went from housewife to cashier. Late at night, when both kids are finally asleep, I pour wine from a box. The expensive bottles are long gone, and scroll through Christina's Facebook. She appreciates him in a way I never did. Posts about how hard he works, how lucky she is, how proud she is of everything he's built. From hospital halls to business owner, she captioned one photo of him standing in front of his new office. This man never stops amazing me. The comments are full of people who remember him from his janitor days. He cleaned my mom's room every night during her chemo. Always had a smile even at 3 a.m. Hardest working man I know. They saw what I couldn't. Or wouldn't. Garrett picks up Skylar every Friday at 6. He's always exactly on time, always polite but distant. We don't talk beyond logistics. She has a dentist appointment Tuesday. Her dance recital is the 15th. She needs new shoes. Daddy! Skylar runs to him every time, launching herself into his arms. He swings her around, asks about her week, makes her feel like the most important person in the world. He doesn't ask about Jaden anymore. Doesn't comment on my appearance or the house falling apart or the notices piling up on the counter. He just takes his daughter and leaves, off to his new life where he's respected, valued, loved. Last week, Skylar came home talking about their vacation plans. We're going to Disney World. Christina says I can pick the hotel. Disney World. Something we'd always talked about but could never afford. Now he can, just not with me. That's nice, baby, I managed, blinking back tears I had no right to cry. She looked at me with eyes just like her father's. Mommy, why didn't you want Daddy to live with us anymore? How do you explain to a 4-year-old that you threw away a good man because he took a job you thought was beneath you? How do you explain that you destroyed your family because you were too shallow to see that a man's worth isn't in his title but in his character? You don't. You just lie, like I've been doing all along. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I said. Like when you had a baby with Dominic instead of Daddy? Even my 4-year-old sees it clearer than I did. The wine tastes bitter now, but I drink it anyway. Tomorrow I'll wake up to a crying baby who looks nothing like the man who should have been his father. I'll drop both kids at daycare and go fold clothes for 8 hours. I'll come home to an empty house full of things I can't afford, and memories of what I threw away. And Garrett? He'll wake up next to a woman who loves him in a house he earned, to build a business he created from nothing. He'll be living proof that I was wrong about everything. He didn't stop being a man when he became a janitor. I stopped being a woman worth fighting for when I couldn't see it.